Hi, everyone. Your host, Amanda here. Before we dive into today's episode, I'm excited to let you know that my recent TEDx talk on the future of work is now live. I tackle all the ways that work is broken and how, if we let them, Gen Z can help us fix it. Check out the show notes of this episode for a link to watch the full talk. Welcome to Season 7 of Design Nerds Anonymous, the podcast that sparks curiosity at the intersection of business and design. I'm your host, Amanda Schneider. This season, we're looking beyond our industry, exploring bold digital strategies from unexpected places to help us rethink how we engage and connect. Think about a time when you needed information fast. Maybe you were trying to check a restaurant's hours, looking up a product detail as you're online shopping, or searching for a simple answer before making a decision. But instead of finding what you needed, you hit roadblock after roadblock. Confusing navigation, outdated information, and no clear way to contact a real person. Frustrating, right? Now imagine that same frustration, but through the eyes of your ideal client. What if they're experiencing that same friction when they land on your website? The truth is, in today's digital-first world, your online presence isn't just a business tool. It's your first impression. Get it wrong, and your ideal client certainly won't stick around. That's exactly what we're diving into in this episode today. We're bringing in two powerhouse guests who have spent years studying what makes or breaks a brand's online presence specific to the architecture and interiors industry. First, we have Tyler Suomala, the creator of Growth Attack, a wildly popular newsletter that delivers actionable sales and marketing strategies to over 12,000 architecture leaders every single week. If you're not already following him on LinkedIn, you should be. Because whether you focus on commercial, residential, or anything in between, there are some major clues in this interview and throughout all of his content that you can put into practice immediately. And we'll also have Erica Weinberg, ThinkLab's very own head of research and content. Now, she's been studying what product brands get wrong on their website for well over a decade. And she's sharing the latest insights on what we've learned on what architects, designers, and other product specifiers actually need from you online today. This episode is about more than just fixing your website. It's about transforming your digital presence into a powerful, client-attracting machine. We're just getting started. A quick pause for this short break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Chaz Amadon, Vice President at Palladian West. We all know that great companies rise from having great leaders aboard. At Palladian West, our mission is to accelerate impact by recruiting great leaders to your organization. In our experience, the best leaders aren't applying to your job postings. You have to go find them, and that's where we step in. With 2 decades of work in the industry, we specialize in expert executive search across the commercial interiors ecosystem, manufacturers, dealers, design firms, and more. A lot of people ask us, what makes you different? And we love answering that question. Number one is we search for the best, not first talent. We'll work long and hard to find that 360-degree fit, not just a fit on paper. Second, we bring you industry insights, such as pay benchmarking and talent trends, so you can make informed decisions about running your business. And third, our favorite, is that we believe recruiting is human. We harness a high-touch approach with our clients and every candidate we work with. Just ask some of our partners in the industry we've worked with for over 10 years. Relationships are at the very core of what we do. So if you're considering the next big addition to your team, one that accelerates impact in your company, we hope you call us at Palladian West to be your partner.
Back to the conversation. Now, let's meet Tyler and Erica. Well, let's start off by just introducing yourselves. And if you have one little nugget about why websites today are more important than ever, Tyler, let's start with you.
I'm Tyler Sumala. I am the creator of Growth Detect, which is a newsletter and community of architecture firm owners that's focused on helping them improve their sales and marketing processes. I think that websites are extremely important because it is 2025 now, believe it or not. And almost everyone, especially your clients, are online. So whether or not they're coming to you through your website or they're checking your website before they engage with you or while they're evaluating you, nearly every single person is going to be looking at your website at some point.
Brilliant. And Erica, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Erica Weyenberg, and I lead the research and content team here at ThinkLab. And when it comes to a website today, much like you said, Tyler, it's part of everyone's journey at some point. But I think one of the most compelling pieces of data that we have is that the average is 58% of architects and designers go to a brand's website as a first step for product selection. And that's across flooring, furniture, wall covering, multiple product categories. I averaged all the data out. And to say that 58%, that's a first step to find the right product, I think it's a pretty compelling argument to make that investment.
Absolutely. And as you heard from their intros, our two guests today on this conversation have different perspectives that they're going to be sharing. Tyler comes to speak to the architect and design realm of our audience, and Erica is going to be sharing data directly to any manufacturers, I would say, anyone on the product side, distributors, rep groups. This probably applies to you as well. Erica, I want to talk a little bit about the research that you've recently done on websites. I recall there was a jump in importance of websites in our recent U.S. design industry benchmark report.
Yes. One of the things that we do at ThinkLab is track behaviorally how the work of architecture and design happens, which includes product selection as a big part of that process. Now, we've mapped that process many years to compare how that changes over time. And one of the things that we measure is where architects and designers are going for inspiration when they are at the front end, the pre-planning, early design phases of a project, and then where they're going to actually procure the information that they need to finalize a specification, to really pull all the bits and pieces together, cross their T's, dot their I's, and make that final holistic product recommendation for their clients. Now, when we started tracking the difference in their sources of inspiration versus information, a manufacturer's website was 12th on the list for a source of inspiration. Now, that was actually just 5 years ago. Over the last 5 years, the world has changed a bit. Our workforce is very hybrid, so we're maybe not able to nudge the colleague next to us or run over to a resource library, or maybe the rep isn't in my home office that day. So what we've seen is the manufacturer's website has gone from 12th on the list as a source of inspiration to actually first, which is really impressive because it tells us what your website is doing has shifted. It's no longer just a source of information, which historically it had always been in the top 3 as a source of information, but now it needs to both inspire, create some really compelling visuals, really prompt new thinking about how to use their products where they apply, as well as be incredibly user-friendly. Provide a user experience that is matched by the B2C industry so that they can find the information and details that they need to then actually move forward with that product selection.
Tyler, I'm curious if that sparks anything for you.
I'm shocked to hear the jump from 12 to 1 being inspiration. I thought you were going to say, oh, it's now in the top 5 or something. It seems to follow the path of consumerism, right? Where we're expecting more and more of the information that we need out of the one place that we go to, specifically from the brand itself, rather than from the other sources like the Amazon or something like that. We want all of the information in one place, which is aligned with this idea of reducing the friction that you experience as a user on the website, right? So before, 5 years ago, when you started this, it was like, okay, yeah, I know. The common practice is that I'm going to have to go to 10 different websites to actually figure out the information that I need. And now, as it becomes easier to aggregate that information and other people are catching on, they're now expecting that they can find all of the information they need at the place that they want, like at the source.
Agreed. And I almost wonder if this is not a function of time. I think one thing that we're hearing very loud and clear from the architecture and design community is that projects are moving faster than ever before. We're even hearing of some of them merging some of the traditional design phases just to move faster in this Amazon era. And so maybe these folks are just moving so fast that they have to go directly to the source because they're looking for fast inspiration to get to a result.
I think that is part of it, Amanda. We've seen that shrinking timelines on projects has also risen as a top business concern for architectural and design professionals. So the crunch is real. The billable hours and the pressure to make all of that time as efficient and effective as possible is real. So it creates a tendency to form a relationship with a brand who can do both, who can inspire you, provide you with wonderful imagery to help you convey the ideas that are floating in your head back to a client who maybe doesn't have that same visual floating in their head, as well as then provide all of that back-end support. Now I need my digital download of my drawing file. Now I need all of the detailed specs and my cut sheets with sustainability information. If you're a brand that can service both of those portions of the process, that's going to help build that brand loyalty.
And I think this goes back to something Tyler said too, that it's got to be increasingly frictionless experience. We invited Tyler on because I keep joking, longtime fan, first time caller, but I love some of your posts. And there's two in particular stuck out to me, Tyler. One is you state, architects, it doesn't matter how great your design is if you can't communicate its value. Another favorite was, every architect's website is designed to impress other architects rather than attract potential clients. And I think it's one of our favorite things to poke on here at ThinkLab. What are these accepted norms? We're doing a lot of research with Gen Z, and that's one of my favorite questions. What are the accepted norms that actually are a little bit ludicrous? So I want to start with you, Tyler, but what would you say is one example of a previously accepted norm for websites that is now an outdated strategy?
I don't know if it was previously accepted. It's just more like, I think it still is the norm, which is that the architect's website truly is designed for other architects rather than designed to attract potential clients. I don't think it's an intentional decision. That's the silly thing about it. But I think it happens because we're such an autonomous discipline, right? We stay within it. All of our friends are other architects. We're trained to present to other architects. As a result, what happens is that your entire posture towards how you present yourself ends up being towards other architects rather than being towards the people that you actually serve. Specifically with architects, obviously we care a lot about design and functionality and being a little bit different in the way that we're approaching things. And so you get these websites that, yeah, they're different and they're well designed and they show your projects, but they don't actually tell anyone what it is that you do, who it is that you serve, and how you're going to help them and why you're different. It's just relying on our work will speak for itself situation, which it does for other architects, but it doesn't for the vast majority of clients.
And when you talk about that, I'm curious, what should they do instead?
I think it's just using words. You have to actually write it out. You have to spell it out for the people that are visiting your site. I would even argue that it's not enough, let's say if you're a residential architect, that if someone lands on your site, that you just have an image right there on the homepage, like of a residential home. Cool. Like, what kind of residential work do we do? Do we do additions and renovations? Or did you do that entire home? Do you do luxury new builds? People don't know that unless you tell them. And the thing is that, especially when it comes to websites, the homepage and specifically the above the fold are the two most important parts of the website, because the homepage is going to get the vast majority of the traffic. And Eric, I don't know if you have any data around that, but like in my experience, it tends to be like 70 to 80+% of the traffic, if not higher, depending on what that website looks like. And then above the fold, which is the area of the website that you see immediately when you land on it without doing any scrolling, is usually actually quite forgotten, right? It's usually just like a single image that's just meant to represent the firm. And then you have to actually scroll to find the information. But the above the fold is so important because that's the first thing that someone sees. And that's how they're going to form their interpretation of what it is that you can do for them.
I completely agree, Tyler. And I think that this sparks something that we're seeing in our research actually around the next generation in the workforce. This is a philosophy that's been around for a long time in marketing, which is how are you painting your customer into the story? But beyond just painting them into the story, we have to shift the narrative to they are the center of the story. Amanda refers to this in some of her work as the Narcissa story. And it really is that important because if somebody doesn't intuitively understand how am I the center of this story that I'm looking at online, they're apt to go somewhere else where they can feel assured of how they fit into that story. And I think one of the other pieces, to your point of the homepage and above the scroll, I think another really important element is how are you organizing your top line navigation? What are those labels? Let's not get cutesy with it. Let's make it really clear what these different sections are and where they're going to take me. Because in all of our busy professional lives, nobody has time to just be clicking around aimlessly, hoping that they're going to land on the page that they need to get to. So I think that's another piece of that first impression that you can't get back, right? Is what is that first impression saying about what their portion is in your story as a brand and how you're going to help them get there immediately.
And I think this brings into account something that a lot of B2B companies get wrong. We pass around a lot of these memes. What if consumer companies marketed like B2B companies? One of my favorites is an example we use from LinkedIn that said, imagine if B2C companies shared information like the average B2B website. Want to know the calories in this protein bar? Sign up for this hour-long webinar to find out. Does it have peanuts? Click here to talk to an expert. We laugh about this when we think about a protein bar. I think we can surely imagine that we would move on if we ran into something like that. Yet, a lot of B2B brands, be it an architecture firm, a design firm, a product manufacturer, anyone in our industry, I think these are actually really common practices. We're taking a break for a quick moment, but don't go too far.
Deep Green is a podcast about how buildings can be designed to make our world a better place. In each episode, we tackle climate change, health crises, economic inequality, and much more, all through the lens of architecture and interior design. I'm Avi Rajagopal, the host of Deep Green and the editor-in-chief of Metropolis, a magazine about how architecture and design shape our future. You can listen to episodes of Deep Green on surroundpodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's pick up where we left off. So I'm curious, what else do companies get wrong? We're not critiquing your website, but imagine we were, and do you have these things going on?
I think the first one is, let's just call it forgetting who it is that you're serving. You can basically redesign an entire website and make that mistake from the very first step. And I see this actually all of the time when I'm communicating with architects and they're like, I actually just redesigned my website, so I'm not as concerned about that. I think that reflects it. And you go to the website and it's beautiful, but it's a beautiful portfolio of their work. But it shows and says nothing about who it is, who they serve, and why they're different. Forgetting who it is that you're serving, I think is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. I think the second biggest mistake that you can make is forgetting what the goal of the website is, or at least not defining it for yourself. So I always talk as if the goal of the website is to bring in clients, because that's what I think it should be, right? That's arguably the huge opportunity that it brings to anyone. Now, some architects might not want that. If you just want to accept that I don't plan to bring any work in through my website ever, and I just want it to be like a unique reflection of my brand as a portfolio website, then that's fine. Do whatever you want. But if you are trying to actually bring in work and attract clients through that website, then you can't forget that's the primary goal. If that is the primary goal, then I would look at your website and think, is that clear? Is it clear that the best next step, and really the only next step that I want someone to take, that I want a visitor to take when they visit this website, is to reach out to me, is to book a meeting with us, is to come into the office? What is that call to action? And usually what you see across architecture websites is just like 50 different CTAs, 50 different calls to action, right? Check out our latest work. Here's the news. Learn about our team. And each one of those is actually just adding more friction to the process of the next step that you want them to take. So instead of thinking about it as, I want someone to learn everything about my firm and about me before they meet with us. It should really be about, I want someone to realize this is the next step that they have to take. And then if they want additional information, here's where they can find it. Here's the type of work that we do. Here's about our team. Don't forget here, the main goal, we want them to book a meeting. We want to chat with them. We want them to give us a call.
I like what you said, Tyler, because some of it translates really seamlessly over to the brand side as well. Almost same outcome, but actually a very different problem where you see overwhelming numbers of CTAs and do this, do that, click here, follow here, watch this video. The lack of what am I supposed to do next on the brand side is often quite a common problem. And when we ask architects and designers, how can a manufacturer support you better? Open-ended. This could be, you could send me flowers. You could provide me with more lunch and learns. It could be anything. But open-ended, how could manufacturers support better? Number one is specification support, which includes drawing files and downloadable symbols. Okay, your website should do that. That's a given. Number two, online visualizers and configurators of products so I can specify it and see it ahead of time. Again, your website can do that. And number three, a better online image gallery. So if our top 3 ways that this audience is asking to be served better, and this is by leaps and bounds, the top 3 are all functions of the website, we can do better here. We can make this a more robust experience. But that number one, specification support, we have to remember that these are humans. And if they haven't worked with you, if they haven't worked with your product, with your brand in the past, they may have a question. They may need a next step follow-up. And you want to enable that as well. So on any product detail page, there should be an area where they can click to get connected with their rep, or they can connect to a chatbot to ask a question. We've cut off that last bit. Hey, here's the information. Best of luck to you. And I think that having a clear CTA of here's everything that you want to self-serve autonomously, but also we're here to support you. Having a really consistent way that they know that they're supported is going to be really impactful, because the number one fear across architects and designers, both residential and commercially focused, is making a bad decision for their client. We're all people. We want to see our clients' projects succeed. So how can we show that level of support through a website CTA?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's really interesting in this increasingly digitized era that our advice for a website is make sure you can get them connected to a human easier, faster, more efficiently. A little bit of irony here, maybe.
Yeah, because when they're ready and when they've made their own considerations, you don't want to force that human interaction too early. Like you said, don't make me contact an expert to find out if there's peanuts in this protein bar. Just put it on the website. But once they're ready, once they've made all those considerations and they're ready to take that next step and put you on their project, don't you want to be there waiting to answer their questions and make that the most seamless experience possible?
Mm-hmm.
You would think.
Erica, any other top things that companies get wrong on their website?
I would say the 3 things that are going to blacklist you as a brand. 1, if you have outdated information on your website, that's a no-go. If your pricing is outdated, if you still have products on your website that have been discontinued, that is going to tarnish their trust in your brand. Number 2, having things overly gated. If you have to create a login to get any of the detailed dimensions, any pricing is a whole nother day. We'll discuss that later. But if as much information as humanly possible that you can make the front end of the website and not gate it, that's always a perk. So making sure that things aren't overly gated. And then that last thing was that they get it wrong when they don't have an easy contact us for more information, reach out for help, when it's not abundantly clear that the brand is there to serve them beyond the website as well.
Tyler, did that spark anything else?
It just had me more thinking about the manufacturer websites. Actually, I was thinking about that process, the architect that's doing the search, that's on the manufacturer website trying to find the information that they need. Like you had said earlier, unfortunately, the world is moving faster. And so now their expectations continue to move with it, right? And so the pace at which they're making decisions around specifications also is just as quick. So that means that if these manufacturer websites don't have that information, they don't have the downloadable file, I think that architect, the brand equity has to be so high at that point for the architect to say, okay, I guess I'm going to go through their contact form and see if they'll send it to me. The chance of that happening, I think, is low versus I think the vast majority of architects at that point, they're going to bounce and they're going to find a different product simply because they had easier access to information that they could use to actually do the work that they needed to do.
Tyler, I'm going to go back to something that you brought up a little bit earlier, which is really around getting to that human, building those relationships. I think we think of digital tools as taking over for humans, but they're actually just facilitators in some ways to get us to humans faster. So I feel like when we look at websites, and I was a little bit shocked to hear you say that some architects think of their website as just a portfolio, I think was the words that you used, which is funny to me because why would you have a portfolio if not to seek work from someone? There are first impressions with websites, but then there's turning these digital clicks into relationships and those relationships into business. Can you share a story or example of a company, either inside or outside the industry, that you think is doing that really well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have great examples of architecture firm websites that do it, but I think that there's a lot of companies that do it well. But before I jump into that, I'll just say that I think like the bar is so low in terms of, let's call it like an optimized website for architecture firms, that you can really set yourself apart pretty easily by reducing that friction, making it really clear what that next step is. And just even if you probably list out your top 5 competitors, go to their websites, and let's say even you just go through the exercise of what would I do if I wanted to evaluate if this firm was right for me, and would I know what the next step is to take? How easy is it for me to evaluate that? Do I have to go to a generic contact us form, fill out my first name, last name, email address, and then just like a note without any context of knowing what happens after I fill that out? So it really comes down to being clear and concise. And so that's why I really like the SaaS industry for this, like software as a service, because most of those, they've put millions, if not billions, depending on the company, behind this idea of really optimizing for what that next step is. And for most of them, that's going to be like booking a demo or starting a free trial. And so there's a lot of companies that do this really well. One that comes to mind that I really like is Superhuman. They're an email AI. They help you organize your email and get to inbox 0 as quickly as possible. But I love their website because if you go to it, which I think it's just superhuman.com, but if you go to their website, it's very clear what it is that they do. They tell you their value proposition right at the top of the website. Also at the top of the website is the CTA, which I think is to start a free trial. And then as you move down, they fill out more information and it gets more and more specific, which is the way that it should be. It starts off broad. This is what we do. This is who we serve. Take the next step if you want to right now. Okay, you're not ready to take the next step right now. Let's go down. Here's some other companies that we serve. Here's the benefits that we provide to you as a user. Here's frequently asked questions. So it's like the deeper that someone goes, they need a little bit more specificity. They need a little bit more information, but it also mainly stays on that homepage. A lot of SaaS websites, you'll notice, do this. I think Monograph is another one that does this. I work at Monograph now. I designed the vast majority of the homepage that's on Monograph today. And it's the same thing. It's like we give the information up front. We give them a CTA to take the next step. We even provide some statistics that make it relevant to them and how it'll improve their business. And then as you move down, you give them more information to basically overcome the most common objections that people have when they come to a website, which whether it's for SaaS or whether it's for a product manufacturer or whether it's for an architecture firm, those common ones are always going to be, 1, are they right for me? 2, how long is this going to take? Like whatever this next step is. And 3, what am I supposed to do? What's this? What's my involvement in this process? And so the more information that you can have that's related to answering those questions, I think the more helpful it is. And specifically doing that without sending them to different places, to the point that Erica was making before. Yes, having a very clear navigation at the top is good. I think what's even better is don't make them click around if they don't have to. Put all of the information on the homepage because that's where most people are going to be looking anyways.
I'm curious, as you give that advice to architecture and design firms, do you ever get pushback? And here's why I'm asking. We did a workshop with a group of dealers, furniture dealers that are selling furniture to architects, designers, clients, end users, commercial real estate, etc. And we did an exercise where they sent out a survey internally to give us 3 words to describe what made their dealership truly unique. There's typically, when we do this workshop, around a dozen dealers in the room. We make them into word clouds and we put them on the wall, and we let the dealers see if they can find their own word cloud amidst these 12 images on the wall. And it's hysterical because one of 2 things happens. Either they cannot find it because all these word clouds generally look the same because their value proposition is not clear. Or what's more terrifying is when they can find it sometimes, because to anyone else who is not internal to their organization, all of these word clouds look the same. Now, when we push and we try to talk about some of these consumer-driven strategies that you're talking about, we even had kind of a disruptive dealer enter our industry that had a great video that was really simplifying the furniture buying process. And I would show that in these workshops, and we would get visceral reactions like, that's simplifying it too much. That's not real. That's not how this works. But the answer to everything can't be, it's complicated. Nobody wants something complicated. They're having to burn brain cells on that. So I'm curious if in your world you get any similar pushback that it feels too consumer, it feels not right for this industry, maybe not sophisticated enough, and how you respond.
You're an architect, right, Amanda?
I'm a product designer by background. Erica is an interior designer.
So designers by trade, at least trained.
Yeah,
trained
we got it all represented here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we all face a similar pushback, which is that, of course, the audiences are creatives, right? They're designers. So there's already just the initial hurdle of, this is a business, right? This is a business that needs to generate revenue. And the best way to generate revenue is to make it really clear as to what problems you solve and who you solve them for. And so that's the initial hurdle that people need to get over. And believe it or not, that's a hard hurdle to get over, right? Because they don't want to come off as being salesy, right? They don't want to limit themselves to a specific niche. So that's usually the pushback that I would get. Oh, I'm afraid I don't want to put myself into a box of the single type of work that I do. And that usually comes around like the messaging that you're using on the website, right? The way that I think about it, or the way that I tried to get them to think about it, is that you can think of the messaging that you have on your website more like a dartboard, where the bullseye, the center, that is your very core ICP. It's your ideal client that you want. But there's going to be other people that arrive on your website that might not fit that perfectly. That doesn't mean that they're not going to reach out to you if they don't fall specifically within that. In fact, they're usually going to reach out to you, but instead of going through the process that you have to go through now, where you actually have to win them over, they're going to be like, hey, I see that you mentioned new builds on your website. Do you happen to do any renovations too? Because we're looking to expand our home. And so they're coming to you like asking, hey, will you make a concession for me to work with me? Because I really like your work. Would you like to do that? So they're falling somewhere else, like outside of the bullseye, which is good because then it puts you in a much better position to say, yes, this is the type of client that I want, or I'm okay with accepting this work. And then, of course, when the exact right ICP falls on your website, boom, they will come to you. You were speaking directly to them. So it makes it easier to win. And then I think it also makes it easier to win those people that are tangential around that bullseye. So that's the way that I try to frame it to them. It's not a bad idea to be specific about who it is that you want to help. I've run polls. Hey, what's the biggest challenge that architecture firm owners are facing? And usually one of the top answers, if not the top, is attracting and winning high quality clients. So what's a high quality client? Generally, it's one that's easy to work with and that also pays you well, that actually is financially beneficial to the firm as well. In order to do that, you just have to be very clear and direct about who it is that you're focusing on.
Erica, I would love for you to answer this question. There's first impressions, but then there's turning digital clicks into relationships and relationships into business. Can you share a story or an example of a company inside or outside the industry that's doing well?
I think that one of the things when I think about inside of our industry, over and over again, when I consult with brands, they are always baffled when I show them a website that's preferred by architects and designers because often they are the most straightforward. It is a repetitious scroll from one detailed product page to the next. You know exactly what you're getting. There's no jazz hands about it. It's just kind of to the point. But what architects and designers love about that experience is it's familiar and it's a trusted source that they know at 11 p.m. when they have a deadline the next morning, they can get that information. That's one of the things inside of our industry that maybe surprises some. A brand inside of the industry that I think has historically always been favored by architects and designers for specifically their website experience is Maharam. And many, when I tell them, hey, look at how Maharam does this, they say, well, it's really not that complex. And, the problem isn't all that complex. It's to be crystal clear with where I am and what I need to get to. From a navigation standpoint and from finding information, they're doing a really great job. It's the philosophy of keeping it simple. If it's intuitive, then it's a good experience. I also think that, to what Tyler said earlier, when you can clearly communicate the problem that you're solving for somebody else, yes, there are going to be times where they say, well, that's not my problem. But even if that isn't their problem, can they take the mental leap to say, oh, but I could see how this relates to the problem that I have?
And I wish you could see Tyler's face. I'm not sure if you can see him on video or not, but our listeners cannot. He was nodding profusely while you were talking about people being turned off by too much simplicity. Is that accurate, Tyler?
Yes. For one, no one's ever going to be turned off by too much simplicity. You want it to be clear and direct, but I was thinking, Erica, to the point you were making about the mental leap of, no, that's not my problem, but maybe it's related to this. I was thinking about that relative to the dartboard analogy. It's the same thing. That mental leap that you are afraid that they're going to make, whether or not they're going to make it, is such a smaller and easier mental leap to make than the mental leap of basically no context, very broad, very general statement to what you hope that them realizing what you solved just from the images on your website. It's a much smaller leap, to Erica's point. So I wouldn't be afraid of it. I wouldn't be afraid of it.
We had Dr. J.J. Peterson from StoryBrand on last season. So I would encourage any of our listeners to go back and listen to him, because he talks about you don't want to make your audience burn any brain cells. It goes back to survival, because if you've got to burn brain cells, you are pre-programmed to save your energy. So this all falls in line, especially as those timelines are heating up. I'd love to do one last lightning round, and I want us to make some predictions. Looking forward to 2025. Finish this sentence. Companies that get ahead in 2025 will do this one thing with their website. What is that thing?
Make the next step clear.
Really good. Erica.
Empower self-service.
Okay. Tell me what you mean by that.
Specific to our industry, when we think about our consumer lives, we have all the autonomy that we need to convert. We can buy that thing. We can do the free trial. We can sign up for a class. We need to make it that easy on our industry as well. We need to be able to download any file. It all needs to be there transparently out in the open, where they can choose to do this by themselves, or you are able to connect with somebody at the company.
We have our persona study, that one of the personas is a digital first persona. And one of the things we always say is it's digital first, but not digital only. They want to be able to self-serve as much as possible. These are often younger folks that are used to being able to find what they need online. But when they can't get what they need on that website, they want to be able to connect to a human faster than any of our other four personas. So I love this idea of the connection of human and digital, that we're talking about websites, but it really is about that human element as well. So what's the biggest takeaway from today? Your website isn't just a digital brochure. It's a tool that should both inspire and function seamlessly. Now, whether you're selling a product or a service, if potential clients have to work too hard to understand what you do, why you're different, or simply how to take the next step, they won't stick around. Reducing friction isn't just a nice to have. It's critical to building trust today and keeping your client engaged. And while self-service is more important than ever, digital first should never mean digital only. Clients want to explore on their own, but they also want to know that a real person is there when they need help, especially in an industry as complex as ours. The brands and firms that find the right balance between automation and human connection, and the seamless transition in between, are the ones that will win. But maybe the biggest shift of all, simplicity wins. In a world full of noise, a clear message, an intuitive website, and an obvious next step aren't just good design principles, they're a competitive advantage. I have to say, while I am inspired daily by Erica's insights, Tyler's approach to communication and digital strategy hit me in a new way. In fact, his influence was so profound that it's influencing our very own ThinkLab website. More on that later this year. And if you follow me, Amanda Schneider, on LinkedIn, you'll also start to notice some changes there too. Tyler's ability to break down complex topics into clear, actionable takeaways made me realize that I could be doing the same. Not just for my business, not just for our clients, but for you, our listeners. So I took inspiration from Tyler and I brought in a secret weapon. My 13-year-old son, Austin. Austin, along with his trusty sidekick, ChatGPT, is now helping us turn past episode of this podcast into bite-sized, shareable nuggets that make it easier for you to take action and share with your peers. Because at the end of the day, clarity is everything. So if you found today's conversation helpful, let's keep it going. Follow me, Amanda Schneider, on LinkedIn, and also make sure you're following Tyler Suomala and Erica Weinberg, our guests. There's so much more to learn, and trust me, you won't regret it. Did this episode spark your interest in enhancing your digital strategy? Stay ahead of the curve with ThinkLab's 2025 U.S. Design Industry Benchmark Report, which sheds light on transformative trends in A&D this year and beyond. Head to ThinkLab's website and click on Reports under the Insights tab to download the full report. Design Nerds Anonymous is a proud member of the Surround Podcast Network. Special thanks to the production team, Hannah Viti and Rachel Senatore. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Join the conversation on Design Nerds Anonymous. What have we missed? Are you doing something spectacular to lead the phygital revolution? If so, I want to personally invite you to call our hotline, share your thoughts, and who knows, you could be featured on social channels or possibly even a future podcast episode. Simply call our hotline at 917-934-2942 and make your voice heard.